everybody. Welcome back to Everyone is Addicted. Today's guest, Norm, has graciously come on to talk about his knowledge and his experience with addiction. So, welcome, Norm. And yeah, tell us about yourself.
Thank you. Honored to be here. Well, I was a police officer for about 26 years, and throughout that time, I didn't realize that PTSD was really hitting me hard. Right? I mean, you end up going through it, and you develop your own coping skills, which for me were not very good, and you just kind of muddle through it. But then I got hit with a neurological disease, and my it required me to have 30 surgeries in a 10-year period.
Oh,
And that's what
geez.
really, yeah, that's what started to bring me really down, because when I was going through the stress of these surgeries, the doctors just kept giving the opioid pills, right? Everything from Percocet to
Yeah.
Vicodin to everything.
There's
And
so there's so many people who that happens to. It's insane. And they don't teach you anything about it. They don't teach you how to wean off, and it's just awful. Like
yeah.
I know from my own experience that it's not fun, and then you have to figure it out yourself. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. You're exactly right. This was in the early 2000s when they were just prescribing everything. And I don't blame the doctors. They want to stop your pain. But with the disease I had, it was called neuropathy, is I had no feeling in my feet, right? So, but when I took them, I realized that it was helping with my emotional issues, right? My anxiety and my flashbacks, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it seemed like everything was okay because it's a prescription medication, right? And that's why I kind of reconciled in my head, because being a
Mhm.
cop, you don't want to use drugs, but this wasn't really a drug because it's given to me by the doctor,
It's
you
not
know?
like you're smoking crack, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So, or shooting heroin or something. So
Yeah.
it just, it gets out of hand after a while because it becomes your go-to coping mechanism,
Your
right?
tolerance gets higher too, right? So that's
Right. And so you're taking the prescribed amount, which is what, two every 6 hours, something like that. And you do that for a couple of weeks, and then you're right, the tolerance builds up, and this isn't helping me anymore. So you jump up to four. And then a couple of weeks later, you jump it up to six every 4 hour, so pretty soon you're using, 15, 20 a day. And then
mhm.
the doctors, they just re-prescribe you. I just emailed the Kaiser doctor and say, hey, I need more, and they mail it to you. So it was really easy to get,
Mhm.
and you don't realize it that it's happening, but you're becoming addicted, right? Because every time the pills started to wear off, I went back to work, and when you go back to work, you're still you don't really feel high,
Yeah,
but
yeah. You function. You feel like you're functioning. That's the word I felt like
yeah,
anyway.
you are functioning. I was doing my job, but mentally and emotionally, I wasn't there. Right? It was just numbness,
Hmm.
and it's actually to a point where nobody even really knew, right? Because you could still, like you just said, function, and I could do my job, but obviously, I wasn't doing it very well. And then there was a point when my daughter, she was 24 years old at the time, she came down with liver tumors, and yeah. And so when they diagnosed the liver tumors, basically they said that in order to remove these tumors, they'd have to take 75% of her liver, which would be really stressful for her, and she might not survive the surgery. And then I just
That's
really went
scary.
down that slippery slope, right?
With your own, I
Uh,
have children myself, so I can only imagine just that worry as a parent. Like, and on top of the PTSD, like I almost became a police officer myself, but
oh,
I knew that I couldn't handle a lot of the situations. So I know the PTSD,
mm.
that can happen. And then now you have a sick child on top of it. Oh my gosh, like that is
And
just,
yeah, and in
mhm.
your warped mind, because of the pills and everything, and because there's always like this little devil on your shoulder, trying to feed you all this information to keep you down. The My thoughts were, well, my DNA is flawed because I have this neurological disease, right? So I gave this to my daughter, who now is going to die because of me, right? I know that's warped thinking, but
I
that's how
think
you
that
think.
way too. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We always have that little devil on our shoulders that just wants to. It wants to kill us. Really, it wants
Hmm.
to keep us deep in our negative emotions, and it wants to keep us deep in our addictions. And so that fed even more. And so when I started taking more, I had a couple of attempted suicides, which thank God I didn't go through with. But it really brings you down to a point where
Hmm.
you don't even want to be around anymore. And I had no thoughts. Basically five. I have two of my own kids and then three steps that I raised. So I have basically five kids and a wife. And I wasn't even thinking about them, what they would think about or how they would react to it if I committed suicide.
That's
It's
what
such a
happened. I did
selfish.
the same thing when my dad passed away. And luckily there was some divine intervention there, but I wasn't thinking that I had a year-old daughter. Like it's the same. You're just
Yeah.
warped. It's not your fault, right?
No, it's not just the way we're designed to think because we're always designed to think selfishly, right? And that's what addiction basically is. It's feeding our own selfish needs. But you're so wrapped up in that you don't. First of all, you don't think you're addicted, right? I
Hmm.
work as a addiction counselor now. We got guys coming in all the time that my wife is making me be here, my mom is making me be here. I don't have a problem. But that's all of us, right? We never have a problem until it really impacts our lives and we hit rock bottom to when we really understand,
Hmm.
oh, this really messed me up. So it got worse, and then it gets to the point where you just want to self implode. I don't understand what the decision making process was because I've never committed crimes before. But I had this acquaintance who said that he needed to have some drugs in order to pay off some taxes. And for some reason, I felt that it was not a bad idea to take drugs out of the evidence and give it to him to sell.
Hmm.
I mean, it goes so far against your grain, but that's what addiction does. Is it takes you out of your who
Your
you truly are.
values.
I'm sorry.
Takes your values away. Like I have memories like this too, right? And it's not who I ever thought I would be or ever wanted to be. So I totally understand that perspective of thinking, right? And it's all of us are like that. And you're like when you get sober, you realize how far you went from who you began. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's very, very common. There was a study done with veterans returning from combat duty that were diagnosed with PTSD. About 40, almost 40% of those have committed some type of crimes because you're not thinking straight, right? For some
Mhm.
reason, if the wires get crossed and you think something is a good idea when it's probably the worst idea in your life. So,
Especially veterans. I was engaged to
yeah.
a veteran, and he had a lot of PTSD that he wasn't willing to acknowledge. So we didn't end up getting married because of the things he would do, right? And so, like the PTSD is so like I have PTSD, but I don't think that it goes as strong as deep as some like my best friend's dad was a police officer too. So
Mm.
I know how much you guys see and experience. And it's the same as the veterans. It's so much for one human to even just handle, I think.
Yeah, and that's a big, I mean, that's a whole different conversation about what we need to do about our first responders because you're right, they see things on a daily basis, and it's crazy. But so I thought that would be a okay idea. I was helping somebody out, and I think in the back of my mind, after going through a psychologist for 3 or 4 years, I think that was a way of just imploding my life to where didn't have enough guts to actually kill myself, but maybe I just wanted to get out of the whole situation, right? And that's what their
Mhm.
thinking was. I don't know. I spent years
Mhm.
and years trying to figure it out. But anyway,
Me too.
so I did it. And of course, the first person he sells the drugs to is an informant. And a couple of days later, I get arrested and he gets arrested. And
Oh,
so,
lovely.
yeah.
It's not
And
fun
and
getting
the
arrested.
and the interesting thing about this all was that I was the commander of a narcotics task force. So I worked narcotics for over 16 years. And so it made a real big deal in the news and everything because of that job I had. Um, so after my arrest, I still really didn't think it was a problem, you know. And so I went through. I was out on bail for 2 years before this case ever got adjudicated. But so I got sentenced to 14 years in prison.
Oh my
And
gosh, that's a
yeah,
long time.
and even in jail. So I did 1 year in a county jail here in California, and my wife was really worried about me, and she told the deputies there that I was probably suicidal. So they kept me
Oh,
in a
great.
suicide cell for over a
Yeah,
year.
I
Oh,
I had my ex went to a psychological prison. Sorry, I'm just trying to move on. He went to like a prison that was made for people who had like those kind of things, and it was not pleasant. So I could only imagine from what he said.
oh, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. I mean, it's horrible. But they kept feeding me the pills, right? Because I would lie. I got back pain and this neurological disease is hurting. So it wasn't as much as I'd been taking, but I kind of realized that, wait a minute, this is kind of stupid. I'm in here, but I was still having the negative thoughts and the anxiety attacks and sometimes panic attacks. And in the law, in the judicial system, there is really no way to get help. I mean, they don't care a bit about you. Even who I was, they couldn't care less. Doctors just said, "Oh, you'll muddle through. You'll muddle through." Well, I don't know how many people committed suicide trying to muddle through,
I
but
know.
muddling through is not easy.
No.
So yeah. So finally, I got they transferred me to prison, which was in Texas, and that's where they really started being hardcore. And they said, "We're not giving you any pills. I'm sorry, you're not. You get your blood pressure pill, and that's it."
But you had to go
And
through withdrawal in prison. Oh,
yeah,
did they
luckily I
give
had weaned
you?
off a little bit during that year because they were only giving me minimal amounts.
Did
But
they ever
yeah,
give
and
you
that's
methadone or Suboxone, or
uh,
they didn't
no,
give
I
you?
never admitted it. I never,
Oh, okay, because I
I
take Suboxone for it, right?
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I know. We know a lot of people that do that, but I didn't admit it. They even told me that if you admit to a drug addiction and you go to a drug class, you can get 1 year off your sentence. Well, there's such a negative stigma with addiction. I denied it, even though I could have got a year off my sentence. I know I'm not. No, I'm not. So I wrestled through it on my own, and it wasn't super bad. It wasn't as because, like I said, that prior year it was kind of weaning down anyway. And I realized, wow, I do. I think I do have this problem. I never considered it really addiction until I started taking classes and to understand the addiction more. But to be honest, prison was the best thing for me. I mean, it enabled me to take classes. So I ended up getting my master's degree in counseling and
Oh, good for
theology.
you.
I got a doctorate in Christian counseling, and then I got my degree in addiction counseling.
That's
So
amazing.
yeah, so luckily, well, I shouldn't say luckily because that was bad. COVID was good for me. I know it wasn't good for a lot of people, and a lot of people suffered and passed on. But COVID was good for me because of my previous disease. They let me out early, so I only ended up doing 8 years.
That's
And
still
when
a
they let,
long time, though.
yeah,
That's not a short sentence.
it is. But when your life is going, in a bad way, I think it's good because you could reflect on it, right?
You're
And
able to go to school, which is really
it
great.
was
Like
right,
I, you had the time to do it, and you had the mental space to do it, which is really good, I
right.
guess. Right?
And for me, it was good because when you go to police academy and you go through police training, you don't learn anything about addiction, right? All you know is that they're bad people. It's
Hmm.
It's not, it's a moral thing. It has not, we don't, they don't teach you why people use or what. And even though people knew who I was, I had some really people high up in the Mexican mafia and in other gangs tell me about how they grew up. And, you know, when you see how other people grow up and you have, they have no hope for anything. Like this one gentleman, I really feel bad for. He at 14, his mom and dad were heroin addicts, and at 14, his mom died of an overdose.
Oh,
So
God.
his dad starts shooting him up. So his dad has someone to, you know, get high with, and so then he forced his son to go out and sell just so they could have the drugs for their own. And so I'm thinking this poor kid at 14 years old lost his mother. Right now, his dad's really forcefully shooting him up with heroin, and now he's dealing. So how do you get out of a situation like that, right?
Yeah.
And I wish in my whole intent when I got out was to try to talk to police academies and try to change the culture a little bit to try to teach that maybe some of these guys and women don't deserve really the harshest punishment. Maybe we give them some grace to go to a rehab. I know a lot of people walk away from rehab, you know, but I think offering the chance because the rehab, at least for a couple of days, even there, it plants that seed, right?
Hmm.
And then so it was a really eye opener for me because I changed my attitude about things 180 degrees, right? I used to think that you had a DUI, that you were a piece of crap, right? Well, now I see it differently, right? Because I see that if I can do something stupid like this, anybody could, right? Because all we're really doing is self-medicating. At
And like
least 99.
I just going back to where you're talking about the stigma. I got a DUI when I was 19, and I was going to school for law and security to be a police officer. So I got in a drunk driving accident where I hit an 18 wheeler, and this I wouldn't tell anybody because I didn't want that stigma of drinking and driving, even because they really do hammer it into you that like that's bad, bad, bad. And
Yeah,
like, oh, I yeah, like how you said you didn't want took an extra year, and you know what I mean. It was the same thing for me with school. I would never admit it. I hiding it, like, and going to court and hiding it, and it
yeah,
yeah, it's just there's so much stigma around a lot of things like that. And I get what you mean by like you really change your thinking once it happens to you, and once you talk to other people that, like you said, lives are so much more difficult than yours were. You really open your eyes so much more. Like even a woman I talked to today, she was raped and got pregnant at 13,
oh,
and just like it's like I didn't have that life. Like I can't believe that it was her brother, that stepbrother, that did it to her. So
oh,
it's like those kind of people, it's like how do you get out? And it's there's stigma behind even trying to get help. And it's but it really does change your look from A to B, you know. That's what I meant to get at.
yeah, and normal people don't understand. So like my dad was still alive at that time, and of course he disowned me right then. And trying to get people to understand that the reason why people, at first it may be just recreational. Hey, I'm going to do a little marijuana or a little meth or cocaine, whatever the case may be. But then when they realize the euphoric effects, that dopamine kicks in, and then all of a sudden your problems are gone, right? But normal people don't understand that, and I wish, and that was one of them. I wish I would have understood that because there was a lot of people that I've arrested and come in contact with that I probably should have had a lot more grace with and empathy with, because now other cops, no cop will talk to me now because now I'm the biggest dirtbag around because of what I did. But they haven't walked. They're walking it partially in my shoes, right? But because everybody has a different level of resilience and a level of the bar where that is. I don't drink alcohol. I never have. I just don't like the flavor of it. But I had a lot of friends back then who drank every night,
Mm-hmm.
and it's for the grace of God that they didn't hit somebody, kill somebody in the car, right? And so when we start looking down at people like us that have admitted to their addictions, you know, it, we get that stigma, and it's so wrong because there was other officers I was getting pills from. I say, hey man,
Well,
give me like 5 or 6 Vicodin to make it through the day. Sure,
yeah.
because of back pain or shoulders, whatever, playing softball, working out, whatever their excuses may be.
Well, my friend's
But they don't.
dad, that's why he was a police commissioner, and they were doing things like that, and he wasn't having it. So basically they threatened his family so bad that he ended up retiring and like taking everything off social media. Like he was threatened so badly because they were like in my city doing things. And I've even seen things like one guy, he had alcohol poisoning and he was with another guy and they were drinking this huge bottle of liquor. The police officer puts the other guy in the ambulance and then gives the other guy the bottle of liquor back. I'm like, well, you're just going to be back here in 15 minutes. Like, so,
Yeah.
there is. I'm not saying all cops are bad.
No,
I'm just saying that there's a line sometimes with them, and that's what happened with my friend's dad because he didn't want to like get involved in any of that kind of stuff, right? But
yeah.
like that's the same. Like with you, like that's why I was able. You were able to like kind of slide under the radar for a long time, you know.
Well, if when you're well respected, I mean, I did 26 years, and
Oh
I
yeah,
I
that's
never got into any trouble, never had any citizens complaints or anything. So yeah, I was under the radar, well respected by people. But that's the whole thing, right? Even people that are well respected, even people that appear to be above reproach, it can still happen too. And we've heard of a lot of people in the billionaire category or millionaire category. It's the same things happen, right? There's no restrictions on who addiction affects
Nobody's
or
immune
impacts.
to it. I say this
Right.
as it comes up on my channel. Nobody is immune to it. And I think that you could be one prescription away from being an addict without even knowing it. And that's exactly what happened with you and so many other people.
Yeah, and I don't know. I've heard of them, but I don't know actual dirty cops. But cops go through so much that
Hmm.
they're just like anybody else. They'll when they get off duty, they head right for the bar and get soused, and that's the only way that they can go to sleep and stuff. And I've seen guys take like beer from 14, 15-year-olds and just drink it themselves. I mean, that's about the dirtiest thing I've ever seen. But you
Well,
know, it's bad. It's wrong.
it
It's very
makes
wrong.
sense though
But
because of like the things you guys like you see like you said sometimes it's hard to sleep at night like with PTSD and like not having it addressed, you know?
yeah, yeah, and it's just so anyway. So so when I got out, right away I went to go do my internship at a residential men's facility, and so I've been doing that now for about 5 years. Ended up writing a book called Christ-Centered Healing of Trauma. So I did the Christian 12 steps, not the AA 12 steps.
So like that I guess we don't say the programs, but I do the Christian 12 steps
Mm,
as well. So I
yeah,
know what you're talking about.
yeah,
I
and
I find it more uplifting, but that's just me.
yeah, and for anybody that doesn't know, I mean, AA is God centered, but they back
It's
off a
not
little
they have
bit.
the agnostic, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Or I go to
and
Celebrate Recovery, which is religion based.
yeah, Celebrate Recovery is a really good program. And so all it really does is instead of a person centered where I'm changing my internal views, I rely on Jesus to and the Holy Spirit to fulfill me and to change me from the inside out. And what I found through going through this is that it's a longer lasting, right?
Mhm.
I haven't, thank God I haven't relapsed. I've been sober now 13 years.
Good job.
And yeah, thank you. But it all revolved around trauma. right? And I know that there's a certain number of addicts that just like to get high, but that's so low. I mean, maybe a half
Yeah,
of
it's
1%.
like, yeah, most people, there's a root cause no matter what. You, like,
Yeah,
I get even the people that just like it, I think there's still some form of a root cause that they're just not admitting to or noticing. You know what I mean?
there is, and that's what's worse. That's what's bad about working in a men's facility, right? Men are too tough.
They
There's
don't
very
want to
few
be
men.
emotional. And a
Oh,
lot
yeah,
of men talk to me about this on here that they want to help men become more emotional because of that and keeps
yeah,
them sick, right?
yeah, and not only uh, not being able to release your emotions or manage your emotions, it's like you said, the root cause. We got to expose that, right? So if a lot of men, I forgot the number. I think it's 1 in 4 men have been molested as a child, and that's a lot,
My
right?
husband
So
was, and like he
yeah,
admitted it to me, but he doesn't talk about it much.
yeah, but at least talking about it takes the power that it has over you away, right?
Mm.
So when these guys come into the rehab, we encourage them to open up, and we have psychotherapy, we have all kinds of different family therapists and stuff. But if you don't resolve that root cause, right, it's easy to get sober, right? And it's easy to stay sober while you're doing 30, 60, 90, 180 days, whatever you're doing. But once you get
First year,
out,
because you get the chips, right? And that's
yeah,
like
yeah, the gyms. But,
exciting.
but once you get out and life smacks you in the butt with, stress of this and stress of that,
Life's
because
not perfect because you're sober. You still have
right.
struggles. Trust me, I'm in a really hard time right now, and I haven't picked up anything because I've
Oh,
learned my root causes, right?
it's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And so if we don't try to at least get a handle on those root causes and try to get those resolved, then the rehab was for nothing, right? Because
Mhm.
you learn great coping skills. But when you're out there and the stress hits you of life, you revert back to what your habits are, right? And because if you're in rehab, it's so easy because there's nobody there to, there's no drugs, there's no alcohol. Where there's we have like 2 to 1 for a counselor, two counselors for every one client. So there's a lot of help there.
My
So
friend
if you leave,
even, yeah, well, my friend went to a 21-day program for alcohol. And now that she's been out for 3 months, she explained to me that she's struggling because she didn't feel like she was there long enough, or even not even being there, but being in the real world, doing her job, watching her children, all of that stuff. She's about 5 kids, three are adopted, but like or step, but yeah, like she said, like what you're saying is she is struggling so hard because she doesn't have that environment and she misses that environment with the
right,
therapy and stuff like that. She's like the groups are good, but the therapy is where it was
right.
helping her.
Yeah, and really a 30-day program is a nice start, but really after 30 days, you just start getting your head clear, right? So you're really not thinking, with post-acute withdrawal symptom pause, you're still having those ups and downs in your emotions. Your body's still trying to cleanse itself from whatever you've been using, so your emotions are wide ranging. So it isn't until after the 30 days or maybe 40 days when you finally, okay, now stuff can start sinking in. Now I can really take a deep dive into what's going on and understand the coping skills and understanding all this stuff. So I'm not a big proponent of 30 days. I think 90 should be the minimum. But then everybody
I
comes up
agree.
with well, I got kids, I got a job. Well, if you got a job, you're still the law is that they can't fire you, right?
Yep.
So, and you can go and get disability while you're off. So that shouldn't be a problem there. So those are just excuses,
Yeah,
right?
because you
And
have to want it enough
yeah,
to do it, you know?
right. And what are you going to sacrifice to do it? Okay,
Mhm.
yeah, my kids are young and I want to be with them.
You want to be
But if
healthy.
you don't do it right this time, say you're only clean for 6 months a year, you're going to do it again. So then your
You
kids are
could
suffering
lose
again. Do it
you could
right the
lose
first
your
time.
children. You could lose your children. Go for 90 days, then you don't have that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you can lose your children so fast. So
Oh yeah.
why not put that effort in, you know?
Exactly. So that's that's always a struggle. And of course, the guys that just can't cope with the stopping using. They're I'm having such tough urges. I can't stop these urges. I just got to go. And it's okay. Well, he's not ready yet. So when you're not ready, you're not ready. And a lot of times it takes hitting rock bottom, just like I did. I hit rock bottom, and I realized, oh crap, I got to do something now, because I don't want it to take away. It almost took away my family, because later on, my daughters, and like I said, they were all adults at that time. They were all, hey, we didn't even want to come visit you. They were all out of the house at the time. We didn't even want to come visit you because you turned into such a jerk. You used to be a great dad, but now, we didn't even want to visit you, because I would get angry quickly, and I would, when I left, there was like 4 or 5 holes I punched in the wall because of this uncontrolled anger. But it's the emotions. You're not dealing with the root cause of all your stuff, and without the medication to properly suppress it. But you don't want to suppress it. If I wouldn't have suppressed it, if I would have just came to my wife and say, hey, these things are bothering me, she would have said, you need help, and I probably would have got help. Or some of my coworkers would have said, hey, I see changes in you. You're angry all the time, or now you look like you're tired all the time, not
Yeah.
knowing about the pills. Yeah, maybe you should seek some help. And maybe I would have, but when you bury your emotions, when you suppress them, it's only going to last for so long until they violently come out.
Bubble
And
up
this is what,
real bad.
yeah, and that's what happened to me, and I know it happens to a lot of other people who lose their jobs, they lose their family, their marriages. Kids don't talk to them for years, if ever. So, you know, part of my book is about, listen, we got to resolve those issues. You got to come out and open up. You can't keep these things in. Keeping them in is going to make things worse. The pain is going to be more intense, and the pain is going to last longer. So why not just do it? It's rough. Yeah, nobody wants to talk about what happened to us, and it wasn't fair, it wasn't right. But if you don't deal with it, if you don't begin to resolve those issues, it's going to be a cycle of just addiction, of going to, I mean, I know one guy that went to 14 different rehab places till
Well, I've
finally,
yeah,
and
I've
I
talked
was, yeah,
I've
I was
talked to
there
people
when
about
he,
that cycle.
yeah. And it wasn't until one group was 2 years ago now, that he finally came out and said that he was molested. He came out to the group, and he cried and he cried and he cried. But he's been sober almost 2 years now. See, it's a matter of just getting that stuff out and doing like a spiritual cleansing. And it's, I mean, it's not for everybody. Everybody's going to eventually
Yeah.
relapse, and relapse is just part of the process. So if you've relapsed, don't take that as a negative, or don't feel guilty or shameful. Use that as a catalyst to say, okay, what did I do wrong? Did I stop going to meetings? Did I stop, talking to family? Did I start isolating? And then use that for this next sober time. So but I really wish that the police officers would get more training on why people do the things they do, because it's a lot of trauma based stuff.
With your book, what does it take you through to I'm just wondering, because you said a little bit about it, but I was just wondering in a little more detail, can you tell me a little more detail about it?
Yeah,
Just
I
for people
it's
that
it's
want to.
real big. It's a real thick book. It's like 330 something pages, but it's got everything in there. So I never believed in God because of all the stuff that I saw, right? And it was after my arrest, and I know this is kind of cliche, but after my arrest that I think God intervened in my life. And so I was saved after my arrest. And when I started learning about the Bible, I didn't understand it, right? The Bible is really difficult to understand. So what I talk about in the book, I start off with what trauma is, how it physically affects your body, not only your body but your emotions and your soul. And then I go into I think it's 2 chapters of simple Bible study, right? But in layman terms, like I said,
Mhm.
dummy like me can understand. Okay, what is the gospel? What does it mean? Why is there a virgin birth? What does the virgin birth mean? You know what I'm saying? Because these all have really super meanings.
Mhm.
What is the part of the resurrection, and what is sin, and how do we cleanse ourselves from all this kind of stuff, how we get out of God's will and how we get out of his blessings in a real simple, easy to understand breakdown of the biblical scriptures, right? Then it
It is
goes into
awesome.
describing all of our emotions, what the emotions, what we feel the emotions were designed for, how we abuse them, how we ignore them, and the effects of that when we do that. And then we go through and I talk about journaling, because a lot of people do not want to talk to friends or family about what happened, and we don't have the money to spend $200 an hour on psychiatrists. So
Hmm.
journaling is like the next best thing. If you're open and honest about your journaling, you can make really a lot of progress in your recovery and in resolving those past issues if you journal it. So I go into a lot of the journaling, and then we'll go into how to go ahead and do this cleansing, right? So I give some studies, case studies, like what people have done. So, for instance, if the Bible says that you can't, if you don't honor your parents, things will not go well with you. And it says that like 3 times in the Bible. So, if you look at it and go, okay, what my father did to me wasn't right, it wasn't fair. But if I hate him, it's what it's doing is it's cursing me in this. It's taking away my blessings from God.
How I kind of see it is that my father's passed, but my mother, yes, I look at her past, her traumas, and realize that she's a real person, and that's the reasons why she did some of the things she did. And so I still honor her in the best way that I can with what um equals with my values, because she's an alcoholic. So obviously what the things that do align, I do respect her for, and I always try to make sure that she feels appreciated when she helps me out and things
Oh,
like
that's
that,
nice.
because I totally agree with you on that, right? And even because they are real people. So, like, if you want your child to forgive you for your actions, so I forgive her and I realize why. So, it really
Exactly.
helps me understand. And I love that you said that honor your parents, because I really have had struggles with my mother, but have
Yeah.
learned from exactly what you said.
Yeah, and then I go into forgiveness. I mean, forgiveness is so important, and so many of us withhold forgiveness for, my friend betrayed me. I'll never, want nothing to do with her again, and you know, you don't have to. And forgiveness doesn't really mean you have to reconcile, but at least you release that weight, and that weight can weigh us down so much that it turns into bitterness. It's like people who are out there with the AA could do 4-step, right? You try to get rid of all these resentments, and most of these resentments are because you haven't forgiven these people. So once you start forgiving the people that you you deemed harmed you in some way, it
Yeah.
just releases that weight.
I
and,
even
and
think about my first sponsor. I wish I could see her again because she made me so angry, but it was just I was 24 and I had a chip on my shoulder. Wish I
yeah,
could go back and be like, I'm sorry, but
yeah,
like, clean up my side of the street.
right.
And like, yeah, like that is also forgiveness, is like something that takes weight off your shoulders so much too.
Yeah. Yeah, and then so I go into a lot of the spiritual obstacles, like our sin, and then when we get hurt, a lot of times we'll make inner vows to ourselves, and then the vow is so like if your husband or wife cheats on you, you may make the promise to yourself, I'll never fall in love again, or all women or all men are cheaters, and but when it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? You make this vow, and pretty soon when maybe Mr. Right or Miss Right comes along, you're going to sabotage that relationship because you've already kind of put that vow in. I'm never going to get close to anybody again, and so you're not opening yourself up. And God, that's not how God wants us to live. God wants us to. Life is a risk, right? And yeah, some people are going to hurt us, but the, when when a traumatic event happens, it's really not the traumatic event that keeps us in pain, right? It's our response to it. So we can go through an event, go, oh, man, that was I got robbed by gunpoint. That was stressful. That was horrible. I pray for this guy that he gets. But if you start living your life, I hate this guy. It just burns you up inside, and all of a sudden that's all you can think about. I want revenge, I want this, I want this
Mm-hmm.
guy to die. You know, it's all in how we look at things, and that's what this book tries to do. Is it tries to give you God's perspective, not ours, because ours is so self-centered, right? I want this
Mm-hmm.
guy to die. He may, he put a gun in my face, and I just want him to rot in hell. But it's all in how you look at it. So you can either live with anger, bitter, unforgiving, and just be miserable. And we all know miserable people, right? I know I have miserable people in my life, and I just don't want to be around because they're so angry. And or we can be one of those people who say, okay, I feel bad for this guy. I wonder what, like you said, I wonder what happened in this guy's life to bring him to something like this. Praise God, I didn't get hurt, and I'm not going to let this idiot impact the rest of my life. So if we look at it that way, the trauma doesn't have to impact us so hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult to go through because no one's teaching us. I think these things should be taught in high school,
I
right?
know, I agree because it would
Yeah,
help. Oh
yeah.
my gosh, yeah,
How
that's
you handle
just.
your emotions, how you deal with other people. It's just common sense, but I don't know why they don't, because
I
when they
went
get
to
out of high school,
counseling in high school, so I was given some coping mechanisms early
oh
in
yeah,
life due to extreme bullying. So they put me in counseling and it helped. Those were like two of the best years of my life before I really got into addiction
yeah,
because I was given the coping mechanisms, but then some other traumas happened and they were too big for what I had learned. So obviously I self-medicated, right?
yeah, yeah. But again, there's no shame in that because it's just part of it, and understanding what you did wrong. Not, I shouldn't say what you did wrong. How you didn't properly process that information or in that situation. When you move on to the next time something like that happens, now you have a better idea on how to deal with all this stuff. So um, I really wish more people, before they judge others, and that's another spiritual law. If you judge others, God's going to judge you. But
Hmm.
how we judge others because of what they look like or what they've been through, or they're a felon or they're an addict or a drunk driver or whatever.
A
You
lot
know
of the things that I judged other people for end up happening to me. And I'm like,
exactly.
that is God showing me that my judgments, oh, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
see, you sat there and judged that person, and now this is going to happen to you because you did that. Now you're going
You're,
to learn your lesson because you
and the
didn't feel.
Bible, yeah, the Bible says that you judge, you will become what you judge. So I judge drug dealers really harshly, and I never beat up or kicked anybody's butt, but I treated them harshly. And look what I've become. I've become my own drug dealer. So it's exactly true. And I like what you said about cleaning up your side of the street. Just if you're a Christian, the only command really that Jesus gives, well, there's two: love God and love one another. So if I really practice Christianity and I love you, I can't leave here and go, oh yeah, that show was crap, or I didn't like her because she did this, or I don't like him because he went to jail. Yeah, because if we love each other, we can't treat each other that way, right?
Hmm.
And it's funny that you have so many Christians out there that are the most judgmental. And that's why a
Hmm.
lot of people are stopping going to churches, and even churches now are starting to start getting into politics and in the hatred of the politics stuff. And that's not
My
what God
grandmother's
wants.
church, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Um,
that's not what God wants. So
no,
if you start practicing, a lot of people aren't lovable, to be honest, but at least don't judge them and just, hey, you know,
leave them
I,
be.
yeah, hey, I respect you for being who you are, but you and I just don't click. So, but when you actually hate people, and the Bible does say if you hate your brother, you can't love God, and your brother is everybody, right? So um, all these things I learned, I think if I would have learned these things 30 years ago, it would have made me a much better officer. It would have made me a much better person. I'm happy now. I'm at peace. My family loves me more now than ever because I don't have those pent up issues anymore. And I wish that I could just, and by doing these podcast and my book, it's selling the book. You only make a couple bucks off each book, so there's no money in it. But what I want to do is I want to show people that you don't have to live like this, right? You don't have to live
Yeah.
this addicted life. You don't have to live this miserable, angry, bitter at someone life. You can get over it, and you can get to a point at least where it doesn't control your life, right? Those
Mhm.
those when as soon as you put your, well, at least when I did, I put my head on the pillow, and all of a sudden, all the things that I should have said to somebody that I was angry with, or okay, tomorrow what I'm going to do is I'm going to say this. All that stuff is clear, and you could live that way too. And once you clean that up, there's really no need to use drugs or alcohol to medicate anymore, because you're at peace, right? And that's, I believe, is the key to everything. Is if you're not at peace, you're going to be subjected to not just alcohol or drugs, but behavioral.
Addiction.
I mean, porn, gambling, overeating, undereating, going to the gym. I mean,
Yeah.
even volunteering at church, 10 hours a day. That's an addiction.
Hmm.
So it's we really need to learn to be at peace, and I believe the only way through that is by really practicing what Jesus says, not what churches say, but
I
practice what
a
Jesus
hundred
said.
percent agree. And before I let you go, you don't do any like coaching or anything. You just work at the rehab center, and then you
Yeah,
have your book, right?
yep. I
Um,
have two books out. Yeah, one is the age old question of why God allows suffering, and
mhm.
then this Christ centered healing of trauma. And I
Well,
got both those books out of Amazon.
I'm gonna put the links in the show notes and stuff, and some pictures so you guys can see what the novel looks like. And do you have any last words before I let you go?
No, it's just to the men out there, please don't hold it in.
Mm,
Just come out. You don't have to go what I went through, going to jail and being ridiculed and stuff. Just if there's something bothering you, talk to somebody, And if you're a cop or a first responder and you need help, email me. I shall put the link up there for my website. Email me, or we can talk, because you don't have to live your life that way. Don't make the same mistakes that a lot of us have, by just overindulging in other things to forget about your problems.
well, thank you so much for coming on. I thought that you opened my eyes to a lot of things because of how much you were able to accomplish and how just some of the horrible things that you had to go through and you came out the other side in such a positive way that I just thought it was great. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing everything with us. And
Thank you so
like
much
I
for having
said,
me.
I will share everything with everybody. And yeah, thank you again. Thank you. And I may have you back on. I don't know. Talk to you
Sure,
later.
anytime.
Yeah.